Welcome back to the video today, guys. We are going to cover a subject today of flash photography. We're going to be using the Godox V1 for Canon. Now, if you're looking for a way to upgrade the quality of your pictures, say you're a new photographer or you've been doing it for just a little while, the best way to upgrade the quality of your images is not to run out and buy a new lens that goes down to 1.2 or a new camera that costs a few $1,000s more than the one you've got. Photography, I believe the definition of it is painting with light. So if it's about light, you need to be in control of the light, and this will help you be in control of the light. This is the Godox V1. It's not the V1 Pro, it's just the V1. It's an excellent flash. You can get them for about $259, brand new on Amazon. And I know as a new photographer, when you get your flash and you turn it on and you've got all this stuff on the back, you're like, oh my God, what is all that stuff mean? There's TTL, there's M, multi, there's all these numbers and 28 millimeters and TCM and sync and FEV. There's all this stuff on the back. You're like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. I can't do it. It's not as hard as it sounds. Let's just go over what you need to know, the main important points. And this video is going to be about how, for new photographers, to use TTL. There's not a ton of good videos I've seen on YouTube about this, so I just kind of wanted to jump in and give you guys my advice on how I would do it, and what I learned when I was first starting, and looking back at it, what I think would make it easier now. So hopefully I can use some of the experience I've got to help you guys learn an easier way to do it than the way I see a lot of people teaching it, and even some of the ways I was taught to do it. So let's get started. You order your V1 Godox and it comes in. Now, if you're using a Canon, a Nikon, or whatever, you need to order the appropriate fit. So if you got a Godox V1, I got the C because I use Canon. I also have one for my Panasonic. If you have a Panasonic or Lumix, by the way, you want to order the Olympus version. So you want to be the V1O if you're using Panasonic, or Olympus, because they both fall under the same category under Godox. So just note that to memory if you're using a Panasonic camera. But otherwise, if you're using Nikon or whatever, go ahead and order that brand. So when you get your flash, it comes in new, you turn it on, you got it on the back. So I'm going to show you guys. So you open the box, you turn it on, and you see all this and you're confused. But I'm going to show you guys the back of the menu in just a second. But what we want to accomplish with this, there's a few things when you got your flash. Now we're going to shoot in TTL mode, which is kind of another word for just saying putting your flash in automatic. So when you take your camera, you want to turn your camera on. Now don't be scared when I say this, but set your camera in manual. Don't be scared. I know some of you guys are probably trying to learn manual too if you're learning the flash, but this will be easy. Bear with me. I'm going to assume here that you have just a little bit of knowledge about f-stops and shutter speed. Not a lot, just a little bit. But what you want to do with your flash before you take your picture, you want to know a few things about what you're going to get out of this picture before you take it. If you're going to take a picture of somebody and you want a shallow depth of field or a blurry background or bokeh or whatever you want behind your subject, so you're shooting pictures of your friend or bride or whatever you might be shooting pictures of that's 8 feet in front of you. If you know before you take the picture that you want a blurry background, well, you're going to want to set your camera on your lowest f-stop, 2.8, 1.2, whatever you've got on your lens. Set your camera to manual. If you're using a lens, say it's a 28 to 70, I usually look at the longest focal length on my lens. If it's a 70, I'll shoot at like 1/25th of a second. I always want to go my shutter speed to be match the highest end of my zoom. So if it's a 70, I'll just go to 125 because I want to not only match it, I want it to be a little bit higher, and that'll keep you from getting some blur. If I'm shooting with an 85 millimeter lens, probably again, I'll still be at 125. So let's assume that. So let's say we want blurry background behind our bride. So we're going to set our camera. We're shooting with say we're shooting with a Canon RP. We've set our shutter speed to 1/25th of a second. We're using a 24 to 70 lens. We set it to 1/25th of a second because that is higher than the 70 millimeter. That'll keep the blur. We know we want a blurry background, so we're going to set our shutter speed to 1/25th of a second, and then we're going to set our f-stop as low as it'll go, so we'll take it down to 2.8. Then we're going to set our camera on TTL and let the camera go from there. Now from there, you'll need to know a few things. If you're outside, you're going to need to point your flash probably directly at your subject, which I do not recommend. But for this case, you'll need to know there is a plastic pop-on adapter that I don't happen to have right here with me. It's across the room, but it just snaps on the end. It's magnetic. It'll come with your case when you get the V1 more than likely. It's in most kits. So just pop that on there and that'll give you some diffusion. Now, if you're shooting your bride inside and you have reasonably high ceiling, say 20 feet or less, you can bounce your flash. You don't have to shoot it directly at them. Just turn it up. A little angles a little bit. It goes up, hits the ceiling, comes down, hits the bride in the face. Boom, boom, just bounce. Now, if your ceiling's too high, that's not going to work. You'll have to adjust it and give it more power. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's keep it simple. So again, we're with our 24 to 70. We're at 1/25 of a second. We're going to get our blurry background by shooting 2.8. If we're inside, we're going to bounce the flash. If we're outside, we're going to go directly at her. Now, when we shoot directly at her, the light's going to be a little bit harsh. So we're going to put the diffuser over the front to soften up that light a little bit. If you're inside, you get much softer light by bouncing it off the ceiling. Now, if you bounce it off the ceiling, let's go ahead and get into the menu. Let me show you the menu so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to go, we turn our flash on. Up here, you'll see TTL. You'll have M for manual, multi. So let's go back to TTL. Now, if we're going to go straight on at our person we're taking pictures of, we'll just put a diffuser on the front. We'll leave it at ETL. We'll shoot it just like it is. Now, if we go to bounce it off the ceiling, we're going to lose some light because we're not shooting directly at them. We're going to bounce. That means the light is not going to be quite as fast. So what we'll need to do is we tap to the left, the plus and minus, and we're going to roll it. Now, these are 1/3 stop increments, adding more light. That's plus a third stop, plus 2/3 stop, plus a full stop. If you're bouncing off the ceiling, you're probably going to want to go full plus one. If you've got a ceiling that's really high, you may need to go to a stop and a third, stop and 2/3, or maybe even 2 stops. Now, you can go as high as 3 stops, but that's pretty drastic on 3 stops. And if you've got a super low ceiling, or if your pictures are coming out too bright, you go the opposite way. You'll roll it down to -1/3, -2/3, -1 stop. So that's the amount of light output coming from your flash. So let's go back to 0. Outside, we're going to let the flash do its thing. We're going to be right at 0, and if it's too bright, too dark, we can adjust from there. When we go inside, before we even take the first picture, we know if we're bouncing, we're going to need to add. So we're going to hit that plus minus, and we're going to add a stop. Now, once we shoot that picture, we'll be able to look at it and see if it's too bright or too dark. Now, preferably shoot RAW and JPEG at the same time, again, so that you can use your RAW to adjust some of that. So if you're not exactly where you need it to be, just a minor adjustment is going to fix that. So let's say we shot our first picture, bounce flash, and it just wasn't bright enough. Well, we'll go from 1 stop and we'll go to 1.7. And if that's not bright enough, we'll go to 2. But I would imagine normal size ceiling, you're going to be anywhere from as low as plus 2/3 of a stop. Generally 1 stop is going to be about right. And then if you need to go any brighter, 1.3, 1.7, maybe 2 stops, somewhere in there. But I would say between 0.7 and 1.7 is going to be right. Normally, 1's going to be fine. Now, if you still got your diffuser on from outside, you may have to go a little bit more. You may have to go to 1.3, and that'll give you even softer light if you're bouncing with your diffuser. But remember, when you're diffusing the light, you're taking a little bit of power away from the flash when you do that. And when you're bouncing, you're taking even more power. So this is just adding to the power of the flash that it's outputting automatically that it thinks it needs, because it doesn't really know that you're going to be trying to bounce it or whatever you're trying to do. Now, if you're photographing someone by a window, maybe a bride standing by a window, or your friend standing by the window, and you've got some window light and some light. If it's standing by a window and you've got light coming through the window, then you may not have to go all the way to +1 or 1.3. You might can do a +7 and get a little bit of light because you don't want to overpower the beautiful window light that's coming in. So you might just get away with either 3/10 plus, or maybe even 0 will do it. It just kind of depends on how much light's coming in your window, because you only want to add a little bit of light on the side of their face that doesn't have enough light on it. You don't want to overpower the window light. Now, if you happen to be in a dark room and you can't see your client, you can hit this button here to the right, this button here to the right, in the middle, and then what you're doing is you're turning on a modeling light, and you can control the intensity from 1 to 10. Not sure how much you can tell there. From there's 1, and there's 10. 10's as bright as it'll go. But that'll help you be able to see them and get them in focus. And you just turn that off by pushing the button again. So So try that. Try going TTL. Just push that button to the left, or third base if you're a baseball person. I always go home plate, first base, second base, third base, but I'm a baseball nut, so that's how I do things. So anyway, so start out at, if you're starting to practice so you can see what it looks like right and wrong, just let the camera do everything when you go to bounce. Try it at 0. And then when there's not enough light in their eyes, you'll just go and add a little bit at a time. Add 1/3, add 0.7, and add a full stop, and keep going until it gets too bright. Then you'll be able to see in the back of the camera what it looks like. That way you'll kind of learn what you're doing. And when I'm shooting a wedding, I can walk in. If I'm shooting straight at them outside with a diffuser on the front, a lot of times I'm at 0. If I go inside and I see the ceilings a certain distance high, I know already I need to add a stop. If I've got the diffuser on top, I might go 1 1/3. But all that will come naturally to you as you go. And you don't really have to fool with a lot of these other numbers. They're all important. But to get started, that ETTL, the plus and minus, is really the most important thing you can learn right now. Now, they also make gels that go over the top. They will fit over here. Turn that light off. So the light's back off now. But I wouldn't worry too much about getting into gels right now. I just want you guys to learn the TTL. There are lots of creative things you can do by adding just plastic gels on the front, different colors, red, white, whatever colors you want. So to go over that again, the main thing, turn your camera on, put it on ETTL, go with 0. Start practicing from 0. If you don't have enough light, push third base to the left, add light. Keep adding light till the picture looks right. And if you've got too much light, if it's too bright, bring it on down. You can have less output from your flash just like you can have more. You can take it down 3 stops less, all the way to 3 stops more from normal. So that's a 6-stop range. So you've got a lot to play with in there. But if you'll just turn your flash on, set it on ETTL, leave it at 0, like I said, go by how your picture looks. If you need more light, just roll it over a little bit, give it some more light, practice with it. And then you'll notice the difference too when you start bouncing your flash. If you need more light, add some more light. If you need less light, take it away. So now that I've showed you a little bit of that about how to add and subtract light by just staying on just TTL and adding plus and negative to the light, that'll help you. If your picture's too dark, you add. If it's too bright, you subtract. Very simple, nothing to it. So I'm going to shoot a few pictures, demo pictures of my wife outside, show you how they look, show you what it looks like when it's too bright, show what it looks like when it's too dark, and show you what it looks like when it's just right. And then we're going to try to do a few shots inside. I'm going to show you those too. All right, guys, so we're outside. It's a little overcast. I've got the Canon R6. We're shooting with the Sigma 24-105. It only goes down to f4, not 2.8, so I can't go quite as low on this lens. And we do have the Godox V1 that I showed you earlier. I've turned it on. We've got it in ETTL, and we've got it set to 0. I've got it at 1/25 of a second to cover my lens so I don't get blur. I'm down to f1.4, and I'm going to ISO 400. And this is the diffuser I was talking about earlier. You just put it right over because we are outside. Obviously, I can't bounce this off the sky. So I got to go right at her, and I need to diffuse the light. All right. So here we go. We're going to shoot a few pictures and see how we look. I'm coming close. And that looks good. And I went to 400 because it's kind of overcast. And I'll show you what happens if I shoot it at 100. It'll be kind of dark behind her. There we go. So you see the difference between the 100 and 400. The 400 lets in a little more available light, and I didn't want it to go dark behind her. So you see the difference, how dark the 100 is and how much better the 400 looks. So let's see what happens if we add one full stop to the direct flash. So here we go. That's a little bit hot, and that's also still at 100. So let's go to 400 and try it again. But it's going to be a little bit hot on her face. It's not bad. It's a little bit hot on her face. But now I'm going to go -1 to show you what happens if you take away a stop of light. This should be a little bit too dark. It's not bad. But let's shoot it just like we're supposed to. Let's go to ISO ETTL, just 0 set like it thinks it should be. Straight on. And that to me looks perfect. You got a little bit in the background. I'm going to go up just a little bit. I'm going to jump up to 800 just to get a little bit more in the background. That's a little bit bright on her on 800, so I'm going to bring it down to -0.7. So I went up to 800, which made it a little bit brighter. I went up to 800 to bring out the detail behind her. I didn't want it to go dark. 400 made it look better. I think 800 made it look even better. And then when I added 800, of course, the flash was a little bit too strong. So that is 0.7. I'm going to take the flash to negative 1.3. And this should probably nail the flash. That looks just about perfect. So when I went to ISO 800, I set it 1/25 of a second, f4.0, but I did turn the flash to negative 1.3 because 800 is a pretty sensitive f-stop, but it brought up the background behind her and it made the lighting on her face look really good. So let's check out a bounce flash inside. So we're inside. You can see her, you can't see me, it's okay. I'm going to point directly at her at 1/25 of a second, f4. ISO 400 pointed directly at her. And that looks pretty good, but I'm going to bounce it this time. Bounce with no adjustment. That's not bad, but I'm going to add a little bit more light. Now we've got vaulted ceilings, so they're lower and higher in different spots. So we're up against the wall, so they're a little lower over here, so I shouldn't have to do too much. I think it's fine. There you go. And that one looks a little bit more, the light is spread a little bit more evenly. It lights up the whole picture. So that is at plus 0.7, 2/3 of a stop. Shutter speed 125 f4 at ISO 400. So you can see the difference now between the bounce flash and the non-bounce. So anyway, we're going to go check these out and look at them. So anyway, guys, that is our TTL for beginners. Hopefully I didn't over-explain that. Hopefully I didn't make it too complicated or too oversimplified. I'm trying to hit that just right line because I know how I used to learn. Either somebody would tell me something that just went right over my head, or it would be so basic I'd zone out on what they were saying. So I tried to find that happy medium because it's really, really simple. I know there's a lot of buttons back here and there's a lot of information on the screen. Don't fool with that right now. Turn it on, set it on ETTL, and I showed you how to hit the plus minus. If it's too dark, add light. If it's too bright, subtract light. That's as simple as you can get. If you're bouncing your light, you're going to lose a little bit of light. But now again, when you're outside in the sky, you can't bounce it off a cloud. So it's not that strong of a flash. So then you got to go right at them. Then you put your diffuser over the front. Depending on how much diffusion it is, you may have to add or subtract light with that also. So anyway, hopefully the pictures we just shot for you guys gave you a little bit more of an idea. You feel a little bit more confident now about flipping on your flash, putting it on top of your camera, going to ETTL, and down the road, I'm going to show you guys how to get your flash off the top of the camera to get even better pictures. But for now, let's stick with on top of the camera and stick with learning TTL till we get used to it. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything that I forgot to cover, or any of you guys have been doing this for a long time, want to add some information, maybe I left out something that was important for somebody to learn, feel free to drop that down at the bottom, and you guys read the comments at the bottom because there's some really smart people on this channel. So not only what I have to say, but let's listen to what they have to say also. So everybody has input on this channel. Nobody is too new and nobody's too experienced to be on this channel. So let's try to help everybody start taking better pictures, and let's go from there. So anyway, guys, I appreciate it for helping you guys out at all. We have a new site we're working with. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. If we helped you out, buy me a cup of coffee. That'd be great. If you don't have the money, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's just something new that we're adding. Just gives you a way to help out, keep our channel making these videos, so on and so forth. It's a big help to our channel. If you're unable to do that right now, don't even think about doing it. So, but please ask all questions that you have, and we will all be glad to help get back to you and answer those questions so that you can get this figured out. And I've got my email down at the bottom, so if you want to send me some of your pictures and say, what happened? I don't know what happened. Send them to me. I'll take a look at them, and I'll get back to you. For helping you guys, like this, big thumbs up, and please hit that subscribe button. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.